Hello and welcome to Perfection IS. Through this video, Perfection IS is creating a revolutionary change in the preparation strategy for the students of the Bpsc mains examinations for the upcoming 66 mains. That is, we are discussing some very important top 50 to 100 important current affair topics that should be directly be used in the paper 1 as well as paper 2 as a kind of a capsule model, as an anecdote. In order to get avail this benefit, kindly send your postal details and other contacts to our Perfectionize team so that we can directly send our materials, this current affair booklet, free of cost to you, and you will get maximum benefit of this. So we'll start very important topics among this. The 11th topic, that is the environmental impact of the agricultural subsidies. So before discussing the impacts, there are 3 and 2 basic subsidies that we will discuss. So what are subsidies to be discussed, what are agriculture subsidies then to be discussed, and then we'll define these particular types of subsidies and how it is going to impact the agriculture or the environment, rather how the agriculture subsidies are actually harnessing the bad future for the environment. So, recent incidents of the burning of the paddy stubble in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP have raised concerns about the agriculture's contribution to the pollution, and that we have see every year in the month of November and October that the stubble burning has causes and depletes the air quality in Delhi, and a lot of hue and cries every year has been managed. So what are the type of agricultural subsidies in India? So there are input subsidies, that is the price, and there were subsidies given in the plants or in the objects or in the services that are directly linked to the input of the prices of the irrigation. Similarly, the irrigation subsidies on irrigation, electricity bill, infrastructure, fertilizer, seed subsidies, power, price, credit, export, etc. Now the basic aim of this subsidy is to assist the farmer so that the production will be more. But what happens is it is actually creating an inequality. The areas which are developed, the which are very much developed in the kind of knowledge, awareness, the people which are influential get avail all these subsidies at a go, whereas the rural areas, the backward areas, and the uneducated people are actually not able to avail the benefits against these subsidies, and thus it creates again a divide where the more people, developed and influential people, get all the subsidies and they do grow furthermore, and those peoples who are actually in remote and a distance area and don't have that much of understanding and educational background, they still face the same old medieval agricultural techniques, and that creates a huge inequality gap in between, and which actually harnesses the bad future for coming in India. Now what are the environmental impacts? The first is there has been a boom in the fertilizer industry, and as per the Central Pollution Control Board (CPCB), the fertilizer industries has been discarded as a red category. It is very much dangerous. What happens is, due to the subsidies, there has been an excessive use of fertilizers, which not in turn reduces the productivity but also leads to the land degradation. Similarly, the water runoff from these lands where excessive fertilizers are actually used pollutes the water bodies, and leads to large number of different tropical process like eutrophication as well. Overuse of fertilizers also downgrade the quality of the seeds and makes the products toxic, and that is why Indian crops are actually rejected or not at very much demand in the European Union and the American market because of the overuse of the fertilizers and etc. There has been atmospheric nitrogen which has an efficiency in India very low, about 35%, and low run rice. Nutrient runs off, expensive paddy cultivation. What happens? Due to the better availability of the price and better storage facility, paddy cultivation has been carried out in those regions which are actually rain deficient, and this leads to an mechanized irrigation process that are adding the water by mechanism process, that is using the groundwater and electricity, which in turn actually causes a huge water loss in respect to a less kind of an output. So these are the high water intensity crops lead to leaching, salination, loss of productivity, not of that particular farm but near about all of those farms. Similarly, this leads to the release of methane, nitrogen oxide, etc., and all amount of the greenhouse gases. Intensification and extensification of the agriculture production. So agriculture subsidies, by increasing farmers' revenue, provide incentives, and that is why when it intensifies and its extensify the agriculture production. And since technology has not been used, revolution has awareness was not been increased, only and only monetary subsidies and subsidies on fertilizers and input subsidies have been given. What happens is they produce the same old medieval method of using fertilizers more than excessive than they need, using water more than they need, and that leads to a kind of an extensification of the agriculture production, which in the form is a depletion of the groundwater and the wastage of resource. Now, what should be the way forward? Way forward should be a crop diversification. We should use such kind of crop which requires less water. Economic Survey 2018-19 also quoted that in spite of talking about the land productivity, we should also talk about the water productivity of that particular crop and of that particular area, so that we can conserve water and we can check that what amount of water is actually leading to a crops, and it is or is it environmentally sustainable to brought such products, so it will kind of disharm, it will kind of disengage those kind of production at the rural level. Similarly, we can rationalize the power subsidies. We can use the fertilizer sector in India and sustainable policies, promoting crop diversification and shifting in the input subsidies, and that will further and finally lead to one basic important thing, and that is nothing but the proper environmental balance. Even by using subsidies, these subsidies will be used in such a way that they should not harm the environment, they should only assist the farmers so that the farming can be made more beneficially addressed. So by rationalizing the fertilizer subsidies, we can use, instead of using massive subsidization of the urea to the tune of almost 75% of the cost, it would be better to give farmers input subsidy in cash or per hectare basis, just like PM Kisan Yojana. So farmers should be allowed to giving money in the cash in spite of giving those incentives and those subsidies on the chemicals, so that the black market can be stopped. But at the same time, this cash transfer and black marketing is only will be available to those farmers who are actually having a land on their name. But what about the landless farmers? What about the landless laborers? What about the migrants? Then this can be also be rethink about. Similarly, rationalizing the power subsidy, you can rationalize the power subsidies by giving them a proper rate, but not at free of cost. Similarly, a proper time consumption and a particular proper time, so that there will not any use of the instant water boring facilities. Fertilizer sector in India needs appropriate investment in technologies, and this can be done in the coming time by making more and more effective and impactful fertilizers that will lead to sustainable policy, promoting crop diversification and shifting from input subsidy to invest subsidy. That is, the subsidies should be given in such a way that the particulars of the company are actually exporting. So whatever country is actually exporting, it is increasing the GDP of the country. So these kind of exporting countries should be given kind of a different export subsidy in spite of input subsidy. So this was all for the important video. We'll see you with the next topic. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and take care of yourself.